I need a man the world can't buy. The sentence landed softly across the penthouse lounge, but something about it made Marcus Reed stop walking. Rain slid down the 42nd floor windows in silver streaks, turning downtown Chicago into a blur of white lights and reflections. The carpet beneath his shoes was thick enough to swallow footsteps. Somewhere behind him, jazz played low through hidden speakers. Expensive, controlled, quiet in the way rich places always were. Marcus adjusted the cuff of his dark work jacket and glanced toward the woman standing near the glass wall. Evelyn Sinclair didn't look at him immediately. She stood with one hand wrapped around a crystal tumbler, the city glowing behind her like she owned every building in it. White satin blouse beneath a fitted cream blazer, gold earrings catching the low amber light. Her dark hair pulled back loosely now, not polished the way financial magazines usually showed her. Tired. That was the first thing Marcus noticed. Not beautiful, not intimidating. Tired. You asked for me, he said calmly. Evelyn finally turned. Her eyes moved across him carefully, measuring. Marcus Reed. Depends who's asking. One corner of her mouth almost moved. Almost. Evelyn Sinclair. I know who you are. Most people did. 34 years old. Billion-dollar fintech empire. The woman business channels called ruthless because they didn't know what else to call a woman who won too often. Marcus had seen her twice before in the hotel. Once stepping out of a black Escalade surrounded by investors. Another time standing alone near the rooftop elevator at 2 in the morning looking like she hadn't slept in days. Neither moment had involved her speaking to him. Tonight was different. She walked toward the marble table near the fireplace and slid a folder across the surface. Sit. Marcus didn't move right away. His phone buzzed once in his pocket. A text message lighting briefly against the fabric. Daisy, don't forget tomorrow is donuts with parents, smiley face. He looked at the screen for half a second before locking it again. Evelyn noticed. Of course she noticed. Women like her noticed everything. Marcus sat slowly across from her while thunder rolled somewhere beyond the glass walls. The folder rested between them untouched. I'll save you time, Evelyn said. This isn't about the hotel. Marcus leaned back slightly. That usually means it's worse. This time she smiled a little. Small. Tired. Real enough to disappear quickly. 3 months, she said. Public appearances. Charity events. Interviews if necessary. Marcus frowned slightly. You hiring security? No, she held his eyes now. I'm hiring someone to pretend they're in love with me. Silence settled over the room. Marcus blinked once, but otherwise didn't react. Outside, lightning flashed across the skyline. Evelyn continued before he could answer. The board wants stability before the merger closes. Investors respond well to image. Engagement rumors started online last week. I need someone believable. Marcus finally looked down at the folder. Thick contract. Legal tabs. Numbers. And you picked me. I picked someone who doesn't look impressed by me. That answer hung between them longer than expected. Marcus opened the folder slowly. $5 million. He read the number twice without expression. Enough money to erase every overdue bill sitting on his kitchen counter. Enough to move Daisy into a better school district. Enough to breathe easier for the first time in years. Evelyn watched him carefully over the rim of her glass. You'd stay in the penthouse during public appearances, she said quietly. Private driver. Full compensation. Separate rooms. Clear boundaries. Marcus turned another page. Legal language. Public conduct clauses. Confidentiality terms. Then his eyes stopped moving entirely. The room grew quieter somehow. Evelyn noticed immediately. Something wrong. Marcus read the line one more time. No children involved in any public or private appearance connected to contractual arrangement. His thumb rested against the edge of the paper. Stillness. Rain against glass. The fire crackling softly beside them. Evelyn set her drink down slowly. That clause is non-negotiable. Marcus closed the folder carefully. Not angry. Not dramatic. Just final. Then he stood up. Then you need somebody else. For the first time all night, Evelyn Sinclair looked genuinely caught off guard. The elevator doors closed between them with a soft metallic sound. Marcus stood inside alone, hands resting calmly in his jacket pockets while the numbers above the door counted downward from 42. He should have felt something. Shock. Regret. Temptation. $5 million did not walk into a man's life every day. Especially not a man balancing overdue utility bills on his kitchen counter besides spelling homework and grocery receipts. But all Marcus felt was tired. The elevator reached the lobby. Marble floors, warm lighting, midnight silence broken only by distant laughter drifting from the hotel bar. He walked past the front desk without slowing. "Everything okay upstairs?" the overnight concierge asked carefully. Marcus adjusted his sleeve once. "Depends who you ask." Outside, cold rain hit immediately. Chicago in November had a way of getting into your bones fast. Marcus crossed the street toward the employee parking lot, shoulders steady against the wind. His truck started on the second try. The heater coughed weakly before warm air finally pushed through the vents. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Daisy's babysitter. "She fell asleep on the couch waiting for you." Marcus stared at the message for a second too long. Then he drove home. 23 minutes later, he stepped quietly into the apartment. Small place. Clean. Second-floor walk-up near Bronzeville. The kind of apartment where every inch mattered because there was not enough of it. A tiny pair of pink sneakers sat crooked beside the couch. One of Daisy's school drawings hung unevenly on the refrigerator with alphabet magnets. Marcus shut the door softly behind him and stopped moving. Daisy was asleep under a blanket too thin for Chicago winters, curled sideways against the couch cushions with a movie menu still glowing silently on the television screen. One hand rested around a stuffed rabbit, missing one button eye. Marcus exhaled slowly. There it was. The reason $5 million had not mattered. He crossed the room quietly and crouched beside her. "Hey, Bug," he said softly. Daisy stirred a little, but did not wake fully. "You missed the movie," she mumbled. Marcus brushed a braid gently away from her face. "I know." Was work dumb again? He almost smiled. A little. Daisy opened one sleepy eye. "Did rich people yell?" "Not tonight." "That means tomorrow." Marcus laughed quietly under his breath. Kids noticed more than adults liked to believe. He lifted her carefully into his arms and carried her down the short hallway toward her room. Daisy rested her head against his shoulder automatically, trusting him completely, even half asleep. That trust hit harder than exhaustion ever did. He tucked her beneath the blankets, adjusted the nightlight shaped like a tiny moon, and turned toward the door. "Dad." Marcus stopped. "Yeah." Daisy's eyes barely stayed open now. "You still coming to donuts with parents tomorrow?" Silence stretched for half a second. Marcus thought about the penthouse. The contract. $5 million sitting untouched on a marble table 42 stories above the city. "Would not miss it for anything," he said. Daisy smiled sleepily and disappeared back into dreams. Marcus stood there another moment before quietly shutting the door halfway. Then his phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. Almost. But something stopped him. Marcus answered calmly. "Marcus Reed." Silence for 2 seconds. Then Evelyn Sinclair's voice came through softer than before. "I changed the condition." Marcus looked toward Daisy's bedroom door. Rain tapped lightly against the apartment windows. Somewhere downstairs a siren echoed through wet Chicago streets. He said nothing. Evelyn inhaled slowly on the other end of the line. "Your daughter stays." Marcus stayed silent long enough that Evelyn almost thought he had hung up. Rain moved softly against the apartment windows while the refrigerator hummed low in the kitchen behind him. "You are still there?" she asked finally. "I am thinking." Her voice lowered slightly. "About the money?" Marcus looked toward Daisy's bedroom again. The hallway nightlight spilled pale yellow across the carpet. "No." That answer seemed to catch her off guard. He could hear it in the pause that followed. Somewhere behind Evelyn. Distant voices echoed through what sounded like a large room. Hotel staff maybe. Security. Expensive places never really slept. "Then what are you thinking about?" Marcus leaned one shoulder against the wall. "Why you changed your mind so fast?" Silence again. Not defensive this time. "Careful." Evelyn exhaled slowly into the phone. "Because I realized something after you left." Marcus waited. "Most people who walk into my life see opportunity first." Her tone stayed calm, but something underneath it sounded tired in a way money could not fix. "You were the first person who looked at me like a problem instead." One corner of Marcus's mouth almost moved. Maybe because $5 million attached to conditions usually is a problem. A small sound came through the phone then. Not quite a laugh. Closer to surprise. "You always answer like that?" "Only when I am tired." That almost laugh came again, softer now. Marcus glanced at the clock above the microwave. 12:43 in the morning. In 6 hours Daisy would wake up asking for powdered donuts and chocolate milk before school. Real life. Predictable life. Safe life. He preferred it that way. Evelyn's voice interrupted the silence again. Meet me tomorrow. For what? Breakfast. 7:30. No contracts. Marcus frowned slightly. You normally invite hotel employees to breakfast after midnight negotiations? No, honest answer. Immediate. That mattered more than it should have. Marcus rubbed one hand slowly across the back of his neck. I have school drop-off at 8. Bring your daughter. He did not answer immediately this time either. Evelyn noticed. She seemed to notice everything. You still do not trust me. Trust is expensive. And $5 million was not. Marcus looked down at the worn floorboards beneath his feet. Money is easy. That line stayed between them for a second longer than expected. Somewhere far across the city, thunder rolled low over Lake Michigan. Evelyn spoke quietly now. 7:30. The cafe inside the hotel lobby. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. He should have said no again. Everything about this situation felt complicated in the exact way he spent years avoiding. Rich people brought noise into rooms. Attention. Instability. Daisy deserved better than instability. But another thought pushed quietly underneath that one. Evelyn Sinclair changing a contract after a single conversation did not make sense. Women like her were not used to adjusting for anyone. 1 hour, Marcus said finally. Then I leave for school drop-off. Evelyn answered immediately like she had been holding her breath waiting. 1 hour. The call ended quietly after that. No dramatic goodbye. No flirting. Just silence returning to both sides of the city. Marcus lowered the phone slowly and stood alone in the apartment kitchen. Then something small caught his eye. A folded piece of paper beside the fruit bowl. Daisy's handwriting in purple marker. He picked it up carefully. For donut day tomorrow. A stick figure drawing of him beside her under a crooked, smiling sun. Marcus stared at it longer than he meant to. Then his phone buzzed one more time. Another message from the unknown number. Not business this time. Thank you for saying yes to breakfast. Marcus looked at the screen for a second, then toward Daisy's room again. Outside, rain continued falling over Chicago while 42 floors above the city. Evelyn Sinclair stood alone beside the penthouse windows in a white silk blouse, with one sleeve pushed carelessly to her elbow, staring down at streets that suddenly felt farther away than they ever had before. Marcus arrived 7 minutes early because being late around people like Evelyn Sinclair usually meant losing control of the room before you entered it. The hotel cafe sat just off the main lobby behind smoked glass walls and low amber lighting that made everything feel quieter than the city outside. Early morning executives sat scattered near the windows speaking in low voices over espresso and laptops. Marcus noticed exits automatically. Habit. Always habit. Daisy walked beside him wearing a yellow coat too bright for gray Chicago weather. One hand wrapped around his fingers while the other held her stuffed rabbit by one ear. This place smells expensive, she whispered. Marcus almost smiled. That is because the orange juice costs $9. Daisy stopped walking immediately. $9. Exactly. She looked horrified. Do not let me touch anything. Marcus opened the cafe door for her, and the warmth inside hit instantly. Soft jazz. Coffee beans. Butter from fresh pastries somewhere behind the counter. Then Daisy tugged his sleeve once. Dad. Marcus followed her gaze. Evelyn Sinclair sat near the back corner beside the windows overlooking Michigan Avenue. Red wool sweater beneath a fitted ivory coat draped across the chair behind her. No assistants. No security standing nearby. Her dark hair fell loose over one shoulder this morning, slightly messy like she had not bothered pretending to sleep. But it was the way she looked at Daisy that made Marcus slow down. Careful. Unsure. Almost nervous. Daisy studied her openly in return. Kids always did. Evelyn stood as they approached. Good morning. Marcus nodded once. Morning. Daisy looked between them. You are taller than television. That caught Evelyn off guard completely. A real laugh escaped before she could stop it. Quick. Soft. Human. I think that is the nicest thing anyone has said to me all month. Daisy considered this seriously. That is kind of sad. Marcus pulled out Daisy's chair before sitting across from Evelyn. The waitress arrived almost immediately. Evelyn ordered black coffee. Marcus ordered pancakes for Daisy before she could attempt financial negotiations with the menu. Can I get extra whipped cream? Daisy asked carefully. Marcus raised one eyebrow. It is Thursday. Exactly. Thursdays are emotionally difficult. Evelyn looked down briefly, hiding another smile behind her coffee cup. Marcus noticed. So did Daisy. You smile different here, Daisy announced suddenly. Silence. Evelyn blinked once. Different from where? Television. Daisy shrugged casually. On television, you look like somebody who fires people before breakfast. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. Daisy. What? She does. But Evelyn surprised him again. Instead of looking offended, she stared down into her coffee quietly for a second. That might be fair. Marcus watched her more carefully now. Something about this morning felt off balance. Not staged. Not polished. Evelyn Sinclair sat across from them in a red sweater with tired eyes while his daughter talked to her like she was a substitute teacher instead of one of the richest women in Chicago. And somehow Evelyn seemed more comfortable with that than she had inside the penthouse the night before. The pancakes arrived. Daisy immediately focused all emotional energy toward whipped cream distribution. Marcus reached for his coffee just as Evelyn spoke quietly. I reviewed your employee file after you left. Marcus looked up slowly. That sounds invasive. It probably was. Honest again. That made 2 times now. Evelyn folded her hands loosely near the edge of the table. Her nails tapped once against the ceramic cup before stopping. Tiny nervous movement. You never missed a parent event at your daughter's school in 6 years. Marcus said nothing. You turned down 2 management promotions because the hours conflicted with pickup schedules. Daisy looked between them while chewing pancakes slowly. Dad, she whispered, is this a job interview? Marcus answered without looking away from Evelyn. I am starting to think it is. Evelyn held his gaze for a second longer than before. Then her voice lowered carefully. No pause. It is me trying to understand why you are different from everyone else I know. Marcus drove Daisy to school 20 minutes later with Evelyn Sinclair still sitting somewhere in the back of his mind like unfinished music. Chicago traffic crawled slowly through wet morning streets while Daisy hummed softly beside him, powdered sugar from breakfast still clinging to the sleeve of her yellow coat. She likes you, Daisy announced suddenly. Marcus kept one hand steady on the steering wheel. You got all that from pancakes. Girls know things. Marcus glanced sideways. You are 8. Exactly. Daisy looked out the window dramatically. I have instincts now. Marcus laughed under his breath before turning onto the school drop-off lane. Parents stepped through cold wind carrying backpacks and coffee cups. Teachers waved children toward the front entrance while crossing guards shouted reminders nobody fully listened to. Normal life. Loud life. Marcus preferred this over penthouses and contracts worth more money than he could picture. He parked beside the curb and turned toward Daisy. Movie night tonight, he reminded her. No work excuses? No work excuses. Daisy studied him carefully for a second. Promise. Marcus held out his fist. Promise. She bumped it with hers seriously before hopping out of the truck. Halfway toward the school doors, she turned back suddenly. Dad. Yeah. Daisy smiled brightly. The scary rich lady smiled because of you. Then she disappeared inside the building before Marcus could answer. He sat there another moment longer than necessary. Rain misted lightly across the windshield. Parents rushed around him. Somewhere behind the school fence a whistle blew sharply during recess setup. Marcus should have gone straight home to sleep before his night shift. Instead, he found himself thinking about Evelyn sitting alone in that cafe after they left. The way her hands stilled whenever conversation became personal. The way she watched Daisy like someone trying to remember a language they had not spoken in years. His phone buzzed against the dashboard. Unknown number again. Marcus already knew who it was before reading the message. Thank you for breakfast. Daisy is extraordinary. Marcus stared at the screen briefly before typing back with one hand. She gets that from her mother. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, the response came through. I am sorry. Marcus read the message twice because something about it felt genuine. Not polite. Genuine. That was dangerous in its own way. Most people disappointed you eventually. Genuine people just took longer. He drove home through slow morning traffic with the radio low and his thoughts quieter than usual. 40 minutes later, Evelyn Sinclair sat alone in the back seat of a black sedan outside Sinclair Financial Tower downtown, still staring at the final message on her phone. Her driver glanced toward her carefully through the rearview mirror. Board meeting starts in 10 minutes, Miss Sinclair. Evelyn locked the screen without answering immediately. Outside the tower, reporters already waited behind barricades hoping for comments about the merger rumors flooding financial media all week. Usually she would have prepared 3 different responses before stepping onto the sidewalk. Usually she controlled every room before entering it. Today felt different. Her assistant Caroline slid into the seat beside her holding a tablet packed with schedules and market reports. "Your investors are nervous," Caroline said quietly. "The engagement rumors helped for 48 hours, but social media is starting to ask questions." Evelyn looked out the window toward crowds gathering near the entrance. "Questions about what?" Caroline hesitated. "About why nobody has actually seen the man." Silence settled inside the car. Then Evelyn looked down at Marcus's last message again. She gets that from her mother. No bitterness. No performance. Just fact. Caroline studied her boss carefully. "You found somebody?" Evelyn's fingers tightened slightly around the phone before relaxing again. "Maybe. Will he agree?" Evelyn stared through rain-streaked glass at her reflection for half a second. Then she answered softly enough that even she barely heard it. "That depends on whether I can stop treating him like a transaction." Marcus slept for exactly 3 hours before his phone started vibrating across the kitchen table. He opened one eye slowly, disoriented for half a second by late afternoon light pushing through the apartment blinds. The clock on the microwave read 3:17 p.m. His body still felt heavy from overnight shifts and interrupted sleep. The phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Marcus already knew. He sat up slowly from the couch, one hand rubbing across his face before answering. "Marcus Reed, you sound exhausted." Evelyn's voice carried softer today, less polished somehow. Marcus glanced toward Daisy's bedroom, where cartoon music played faintly through the cracked door. "That is because I work nights and apparently negotiate billionaire contracts during breakfast now." A pause. Then another one of those quick surprised laughs from her. He was starting to realize she did not laugh often. "Fair point," Evelyn admitted. Marcus stood and walked quietly toward the kitchen sink. "What do you need, Miss Sinclair?" Silence stretched briefly. "Evelyn." "What?" "If we are doing this, stop calling me Miss Sinclair." Marcus leaned one shoulder against the counter. "We are not doing anything yet. You still thinking about it? I am still deciding if this destroys my peace." That answer quieted her for a second. Marcus heard movement in the background. Car door maybe. City noise. Wind. "Meet me tonight," Evelyn said carefully. "Public place. No contracts again. You really hate giving up." "I hate unfinished conversations more." Marcus looked toward Daisy's room again, just as she appeared in the hallway carrying a coloring book almost bigger than her torso. "Dad?" she whispered loudly. "I accidentally drew on my sock." Marcus closed his eyes briefly. "How do you accidentally draw on your sock?" Creativity happened fast. Evelyn heard that. He knew because her laughter came through clearer this time. Warmer. Daisy tilted her head suspiciously. "Is that the scary rich lady?" Marcus sighed softly. "You cannot keep calling her that." "Why not?" "Because she can probably buy this apartment complex." Daisy seemed impressed by that. "Oh." Marcus shook his head while Evelyn tried unsuccessfully to stop laughing on the other end of the call. The sound surprised him more than it should have. Not because it was attractive, because it sounded relieved. Like she had forgotten how to do it naturally. 7 o'clock, Evelyn said after calming down slightly. "There is a bookstore cafe on Wabash." Marcus frowned. "A bookstore? You sound suspicious." "I expected somewhere expensive with tiny food portions." "I can still arrange that if you prefer." Marcus almost smiled. "Almost. 1 hour." 1 hour, she repeated quietly. The call ended. Daisy immediately climbed onto a kitchen chair backward and narrowed her eyes dramatically. "You like her?" Marcus grabbed a bottle of juice from the refrigerator. "I barely know her." That was not a no. "You are too observant for a third grader." Daisy accepted the juice with the serious expression children used right before saying something adults were not prepared for. "Mom used to say people who are lonely talk different." Marcus stopped moving for half a second. Daisy noticed that too. She always noticed. "What kind of different?" he asked carefully. Daisy shrugged. "Like they are waiting for somebody to stay." Silence settled softly inside the kitchen. Outside, Chicago traffic rolled through rain-dark streets while sunlight slowly disappeared behind gray buildings. Marcus looked down at his daughter standing barefoot in cartoon pajamas holding grape juice with purple markers still streaked across one sock. Then he thought about Evelyn Sinclair laughing quietly through a phone call, like someone rediscovering the sound after years without it. And for the first time since all of this started, Marcus realized the dangerous part was not the money anymore. It was that he was beginning to see the woman underneath it. The bookstore cafe smelled like coffee, old paper, and rain carried in from Michigan Avenue every time the front door opened. Marcus arrived 3 minutes late because Daisy could not find her left sneaker and insisted the right one felt emotionally abandoned without it. By the time he stepped inside, the evening crowd had settled into quiet corners beneath warm hanging lights. Students typed on laptops. Couples whispered over tea. Somebody near the back played soft piano through headphones loud enough to leak into the room. Then Marcus saw her. Evelyn sat alone beside the fiction section, near a tall window fogged by cold weather outside. White turtleneck sweater beneath a long dark red coat draped across the chair behind her. No makeup heavy enough for magazine covers tonight. No perfect boardroom armor. Just tired eyes lifting toward the door the second he entered. And something in her expression shifted visibly when she realized he actually came. Marcus noticed that too. "You picked a bookstore," he said while sitting across from her. "I am still adjusting." Evelyn folded one hand around a ceramic coffee cup. "You expected another penthouse." "I expected tiny food and people named Preston." That earned another quiet laugh from her. Softer now. Easier. A waitress appeared beside them almost immediately. Evelyn ordered tea this time instead of whiskey or black coffee. Marcus noticed the change without commenting on it. He ordered hot chocolate because Daisy once informed him adults who hated happiness stopped drinking it. The waitress left. Silence settled comfortably for a moment while rain tapped softly against the windows beside them. Evelyn glanced toward a shelf nearby. "You read?" Marcus looked mildly offended. "I know how books work, yes. That is not what I meant." "I know." He leaned back slightly in the chair. "Mostly history. Biographies sometimes." Evelyn traced one finger slowly along the rim of her cup. "Favorite?" Marcus answered without hesitation. "A Navy medic who rebuilt hospitals after hurricanes for 20 years. Evelyn blinked once. "Not a general?" "No, why?" Marcus shrugged lightly. "People who help quietly interest me more." Something about that answer made Evelyn look down briefly instead of responding immediately. Marcus watched her carefully now. The closer he got to her, the more he noticed small cracks beneath the polished surface everyone else probably mistook for confidence. The way she checked exits unconsciously every few minutes. The way her shoulders stayed tense even while sitting still. The way exhaustion sat behind her eyes like it had lived there a while. "You still have not told me the real reason," Marcus said finally. Evelyn looked up slowly. "For what?" "Why me?" Silence. Outside, headlights moved through rain-dark streets in long silver streaks. Evelyn looked toward the window instead of him this time. "Because people believe appearances," she said quietly. "And because every man around me either wants something from me or fears me." Marcus stayed still. "You think I do not?" "No." Her answer came too fast. Honest again. Dangerous again. Evelyn tucked one loose strand of hair behind her ear before continuing carefully. "You looked at me that night like none of this impressed you." Marcus glanced around the bookstore cafe. "That probably offended you." At first, one corner of her mouth lifted faintly. Then it became interesting. The waitress returned with drinks. Marcus wrapped both hands around the hot chocolate while Evelyn stirred honey slowly into her tea without drinking it yet. "Can I ask you something?" she said after a moment. "Depends. What happened to Daisy's mother?" The question landed gently but still changed the air between them. Marcus looked down at the steam rising from his cup. Long pause. "Cancer," he said finally. No dramatic voice. No performance. Just fact. Evelyn stopped moving entirely. "I am sorry." Marcus nodded once. "Me too." Silence settled again. He expected awkwardness after that. Pity maybe. Instead, Evelyn lowered her eyes toward the untouched tea in front of her and whispered something so quietly he almost missed it. "I know what it feels like when a room suddenly gets emptier forever." Marcus looked at her differently after that. Not because of the words themselves. Because it sounded like she meant them. Marcus should have left after that conversation. He knew at the moment silence settled between them beside the bookstore window. Conversations about loss had a way of making people feel closer than they really were. Temporary closeness. Dangerous closeness. But neither of them moved. Rain continued sliding slowly down the glass, while evening crowds blurred outside beneath umbrellas and headlights. Evelyn finally lifted her tea again, though she still did not drink it. "My father died when I was 26, she said quietly. Marcus stayed still. "Heart attack?" he asked. Evelyn nodded once. 3 weeks before the company almost collapsed. Her fingers tightened slightly around the cup. Everyone kept telling me to stay strong. Investors, lawyers, employees. She gave a small humorless smile. Nobody asked if I was scared. Marcus understood that feeling more than he wanted to. The strange loneliness that appeared when people depended on you too much to notice you were drowning too. So you built armor, he said calmly. Evelyn looked at him carefully. Something like that. And now? Her eyes shifted toward the rain outside again. Now I am tired of wearing it. The honesty in that sentence sat heavier than the expensive silence around them. Marcus looked away first this time. Somewhere deeper inside the bookstore, somebody laughed softly while pages turned in coffee. Machines hissed behind the counter. Ordinary sounds. Safe sounds. The kind Marcus trusted. His phone buzzed suddenly across the table. Daisy. He answered immediately. Hey, Bug. Evelyn watched the change happen in his face the second he heard his daughter's voice. Softer around the eyes. Warmer somehow. Dad, Daisy whispered dramatically. Mrs. Patterson burned the garlic bread again. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. Is the apartment still standing? Barely. In the background, Marcus heard his elderly neighbor laughing loudly from the kitchen. Mrs. Patterson had watched Daisy during his overnight shifts since the week after the funeral. You still coming home for movie night? Daisy asked. Marcus checked the time automatically. 8:15. Would not miss it. Daisy lowered her voice conspiratorially. The rich lady there? Marcus glanced toward Evelyn across the table. She pretended not to listen while very obviously listening. Yes. Does she still smile weird around you? Evelyn nearly choked on her tea. Marcus pinched the bridge of his nose slowly. Go finish your homework. That was not a no. The line disconnected before he could answer. Silence followed for half a second. Then Evelyn laughed quietly into her cup, shoulders relaxing in a way Marcus had not seen before. Not controlled laughter this time. Real laughter. Your daughter is terrifying, she admitted. Marcus slid his phone back into his pocket. She got that from her mother too. Something softened in Evelyn's expression again after he said that. She studied him silently for a second longer than normal. Then her smile faded slightly. Not because of him. Because something behind Marcus caught her attention. Tiny shift. Tiny freeze. Marcus noticed immediately. Years of reading rooms taught him to recognize changes before words arrived. He turned casually toward the bookstore entrance. A man stood near the front display pretending to browse magazines. Mid-40s. Dark coat. Baseball cap low over his eyes. Nothing unusual at first glance. Except he was looking toward Evelyn too often. Not admiring. Watching. Marcus faced forward again slowly. You know him? Evelyn's fingers stopped moving. Around the teacup. Do not turn around again, she said quietly. Her voice had changed completely now. Colder. Tighter. Marcus stayed calm. Who is he? Evelyn swallowed once before answering. Someone who should not know where I am tonight. Marcus looked at her carefully now. Really carefully. The bookstore suddenly felt smaller than before. Evelyn. She met his eyes. For the first time since they met. Marcus saw something underneath all the confidence and control. Fear. Small. Hidden well. But real. Then the man near the entrance started walking slowly toward their table. Marcus did not panic. People made mistakes when they panicked. Instead, he picked up his cup slowly and looked toward the bookstore shelves beside them like nothing had changed at all. How dangerous? He asked quietly. Evelyn kept her eyes lowered toward the table now, fingers tightening once against the ceramic teacup before relaxing again. Complicated, dangerous. That is not an answer. The man kept moving through the bookstore one slow step at a time, pretending to study displays he clearly did not care about. Marcus noticed details automatically. Expensive shoes. Earpiece hidden beneath the baseball cap. Watching exits too often. Not random. Evelyn spoke carefully without lifting her eyes. His name is Richard Hale. Marcus stayed still. Ex-husband. That almost made her laugh despite the tension pressing into the room. Almost. Former business partner. Former because... Evelyn finally looked at him directly. Because I found out he was moving company money through shell accounts tied to overseas investors. Marcus understood enough from his years handling logistics contracts in the Marines to know that sentence carried more weight than she wanted to explain inside a bookstore cafe. You reported him. Evelyn nodded once. The investigation never became public. But he blames you anyway. He blames me for surviving it. The words landed softly between them. Honest again. Marcus glanced toward the man, now standing near the travel section, pretending to flip through a magazine upside down. Amateur mistake. Marcus almost sighed. He followed you here? Probably. And you still came alone. Evelyn looked down briefly. I was tired of living like every room belonged to security teams and lawyers. Marcus studied her face carefully now. White sweater sleeves pushed loosely to her wrists. Tired eyes. Controlled breathing that still shook slightly beneath the surface. She had not asked him for help directly once since this started. That mattered. Most rich people demanded things. Evelyn mostly looked exhausted by needing them. Listen carefully, Marcus said calmly. When we leave, you stay beside me. Her eyes lifted again. Marcus, beside me. Something in his voice made her stop arguing immediately. The man near the travel section started walking again, slower this time. Evelyn's shoulders tightened almost invisibly. Marcus noticed that too. Does he approach you often? Not directly. Meaning? Flowers. Anonymous calls. Being places he should not know about. Marcus exhaled slowly through his nose. Not random then. Intentional pressure. Psychological. Designed to keep her nervous. Evelyn whispered quietly. I did not tell anyone I was meeting you tonight. Marcus looked toward the bookstore entrance. Rain hammered harder outside now. City lights blurring through fogged windows. Then something clicked into place inside his head. Your assistant knows? Evelyn hesitated. Too long. Marcus turned back toward her fully now. Evelyn. Caroline handles my schedule. And who hired Caroline? Silence. There it was. Marcus leaned back slightly in his chair while the man finally stopped 10 feet away, pretending to browse paperbacks he never touched. You have a leak inside your company. Evelyn looked down at the table. I know. How long? 3 months. Marcus stared at her for a second longer. And you were going to drag me into this with a fake relationship contract. Her eyes lifted sharply. That is not why I chose you. Then why? The question landed harder this time. Realer. Evelyn's breathing slowed carefully before she answered. Because every person around me either wants access to my money or fears losing it. Her voice softened. But you walked away from both. Marcus said nothing. Outside, thunder rolled low over Chicago. While customers moved quietly around them, unaware of the tension wrapped tightly around one small corner of the cafe. Evelyn looked directly into his eyes now. No armor left in her expression anymore. Just honesty and exhaustion. I did not hire you because you looked convincing beside me, she admitted quietly. I hired you because you looked safe. Marcus held her gaze for one long second. Then the man in the baseball cap started walking toward their table again. And this time he was not pretending to browse anything.